Well, good evening to all of our Intermediate Center Vikings. Welcome to our community town hall tonight. 1 week from today, we'll begin our changeover from a fully virtual model to a hybrid and virtual model. My name is Steve Salerno. I'm your superintendent of schools, and I'm pleased to be working with a number of key folks who've just been working so hard in order to get this successfully off the ground. First, allow me to recognize any of our staff members who are on the call this evening. They really have worked tirelessly up to this point in order to have their feet in both worlds, not to mention, of course, report cards are coming due on top of it. So they have a lot on their plates, yet they continue to spin a number of plates at the tips of their fingers and not even dropping a single one of them. I'm also pleased tonight that we have on the call members of our senior leadership team. This includes Brian Johnson, our Director of Student Services, Sarah Straka, our Director of Instruction, and Sarah Eartham, our Director of Human Resources. And lastly, I'm so pleased to introduce someone who's just ably led the charge for us to be moving onward and upward in a very positive trajectory. And of course, I'm referring to our principal, Katie Hauge. Katie's positive disposition and can-do knowledge really has set the tone, tempo, and pace for a successful launch of our program. For those of you who are uninitiated and have not been on one of these calls before in the past, maybe it would be helpful for me just to explain a little bit about what we hope to do tonight. The first of which is just to kind of get you familiarized with this platform called Google Meets. In the upper right-hand corner, you'll notice something that kind of looks like a quotation mark, a little thought bubble, if you will. In a few moments, we're going to be entertaining individuals' questions and comments, feedback, concerns for that matter. And I'll be helping to facilitate that part of the question, or of the process, I should say, excuse me. But before we get started with that, feel free, of course, to be entering those in here in these next few minutes. But we'll ask Katie Hauge just to provide us an update as to where we are right now. What has been happening these past 3 or 4 weeks since we last visited with families? And we'll take it from there. So good evening, Katie. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Steve, for getting that launched. If my attention gets pulled for a minute, it is because I'm hosting the meeting, and so anyone coming from outside of our domain, I need to allow in. But it looks like we've got a pretty good group here. So as we've gotten further into the planning process, we have so much more information to share. And when we think back to where we were 4 weeks ago, when we were just asking families to decide if we wanted to send students in person or remain virtual, we thought it would be great if we could come back and share many of those details with families. We've been trying to do it through our newsletters. Our teachers have been great sources of information, and we wanted to offer a part 2 for you. So the way I have this organized, we'll review a little of the process of the timeline. We'll move on to our virtual learning updates, where there's a few, we have a few updates, but we're pretty used to that platform at this point. And then we'll move on to our in-person learning information and question and answer from there. As Steve said, if a question comes up before we get to the Q&A, you're welcome to ask. Steve will moderate that for us, and if he wants, if we can pipe in and answer that question right away, we'll do that. So we talked a little bit about our timeline. Remember, this process started back before the holidays. And our survey, we asked for all of that information on December 30th. And then last week, a week ago today, we were sending out our class lists with teachers assigned and classmates assigned. And then coming up this week, we had school today, we'll have school tomorrow, and then no school for the rest of the week. The exception is orchestra. Mrs. Brown teaches orchestra on Wednesdays, and she would love to see your orchestra student on Wednesday to continue that learning. And all of this to get ready for welcoming cohort A in person on Monday and cohort be in person on Thursday, and our new class groups starting virtually on Monday as well. So we'll start with our virtual learning updates. Each of our grade level teachers, we have 2 classes at each grade level who will be staying virtual. They are specifying this virtual schedule for your particular student and grade level. Much of this schedule is going to seem very familiar to you. We'll point out a couple of key things. First, classes are starting at 8:05 instead of 8:15. So an 8:05 launch for morning meeting for all of our virtual learners. That will allow us time to really do morning meeting and number corner justice between the both of them, and still provide a break after the whole group literacy and math. So starting 10 minutes earlier will just take the pressure off trying to fit so much valuable learning in. We'll still maintain small groups between 9:30 and 11:30, and come on back for one more whole group class at 11:45. We have adjusted the grade level related arts classes just slightly to allow a 5-minute buffer between those classes. There again, so that class or related arts teachers can really make the most of that 30 minutes with students before pausing and moving on to their next grade level. All right. So we talked about the 10-minute earlier start. That gives an additional 10 minutes for whole group time in the morning. The small groups, teachers will meet with all students daily. It might be a different time of the day when they've been compared to where they currently are, or it might be for a different amount of time. Say a student could really use more than 30 minutes, or a student could really be just fine with a briefer check-in. Teachers will customize that for student needs. Our end of the day check-in, we are really been encouraging students to take advantage of that, but some of the feedback we've gotten is, hey, 3 o'clock, we're done with the computer by 3 o'clock. And so teachers may be moving that up either to after the related arts time, or maybe keeping that at 3 p.m. The virtual teacher will let you know that. And as we talked about, we've adjusted the related arts schedule just slightly. Another difference for virtual learners will be attendance, where we have not taken attendance through different parts of the day. If we see students attend, we've been marking them present. Whereas they are expected to attend all whole and small group instruction. Attendance will be taken twice a day during each of the whole groups, and attendance at small group instruction is expected. So just like if our students were attending in person, if a student will be absent for any part of the day, we need parents or guardians to call the office and notify us of an absence so that we can mark them excused. For our related arts, we'll continue with live lessons for art, music, PE, and guidance. Here again, a difference being we're asking families to attend either the live lesson or the recorded video. So picking one, we'd encourage as much live participation as possible to have those check-ins with our teachers. But we understand sometimes capacity to sit for another class may be difficult. In either case, teachers will have a corresponding brief assignment that we ask students to complete either in Seesaw or Google Classroom. Library lessons will continue to be recorded. And another related arts update is Mrs. Lou Wiglatz needs to take some time away to support her family. And so Miss Christy Sprague will be coming to sub for her, and she will be teaching art starting on February 1st. To make sure students have all the materials they need, we are doing a materials pickup on Wednesday, January 27th. That's this week, Wednesday, from 11 to 4:15, and we'll have it at our cafeteria doors like usual. Please remember to bring that sign with your student's last name, grade, and homeroom. That will help our runners find your bag and get it to you quickly. And we ask that you stay in your vehicle. We'll make this a contactless pickup. Just a couple more pieces here. Report cards are going to go home with materials pickup this week on Wednesday. We will be updating our Clever, Seesaw, Google Classrooms, and Meet links. So items that you may have bookmarked may need to be updated. More of that will come directly from our virtual teachers. So keep an eye for any messages in your inbox coming from them. All right, that is it for virtual updates that I had on my end. I'll pause to see if there are any questions that will come from the group. You're welcome to unmute and chime in or add a question to the chat. All right. We always talk with teachers about the importance of wait time. So they're always in these virtual meetings, there's always a little bit of dead air, but that's all right because the wait time is important.
Say, Katie, if you don't mind, it was wise for you to have that wait time because two thoughtful questions have come in the chat. The first is with regard to pickup. Should it be the new homeroom teacher who's listed in that placard, or should it be our previous one?
Yes, if you could please use the new homeroom teacher. We'll have our materials organized by those 6 classroom teachers' names. And so if you could indicate the new homeroom teacher, that would be most helpful for us.
And is supply pickup only for virtual teachers, or is it also for hybrid?
It is only for virtual. We were thinking that our families who are sending their students back in person might appreciate one less trip. And so any materials that we'll be sending home for students who are coming in person, we will send those home with our students. That's for the foreseeable future. If there's an exception, of course, we'd notify you, but we intend for in-person learners to save you a trip and send those materials home with students. All right. Gina, that's a great question. I am going to touch a little bit on face coverings and getting organized in just a couple of slides. So thank you for that question. If you have more questions, feel free to add them into the chat. Dr. Salerno will be monitoring that. And then I will move into some of our in-person slides. Just to cover our bases, we are following an AABB hybrid schedules. Students with the last names A through K coming in person on Monday, Tuesday, and students with the last name L through Z coming on Thursday and Friday. We are running our full school day, so the school day begins at 8:05, and we're adjusting our dismissal just slightly and doing it gradually, and I'll touch on that as well. All right, getting ready for in-person learning. I would ask that you double check your class list and teacher assignment to make sure you know who your child is assigned to. If you're not sure, that email has been lost in all the massive emails that we have. If you want to call and double check, that's no bother. Please give us a call at 437-7406. We ask that you double check that school supply list and purchase any additional supplies. We held off on some supplies in the fall because we knew that they would not be needed. And so now double checking to make sure we have everything coming in that we'll need. And to Gina's point, finding masks that your child is comfortable wearing. We ask that masks are 2-ply, and they can be the disposable ones, they can be cloth ones, they can be gaiters if they're 2-ply. We do, handkerchiefs are not allowed to be worn as those are not 2-ply and are too thin. And our nurses will be sending home a letter tomorrow, so check your inbox, where it's going to be talking about our COVID health acknowledgement for families. And in there is a link to the CDC that includes mask guidelines and guidance.
Say, Katie, this is an opportunity for me also to mention some of the protocols that we're establishing around kids who might not necessarily be following the procedures and routines of wearing masks.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Of course, your safety of your children and that of our staff is paramount for us. And as you might imagine, there will be times when kids being kids just might simply forget to have their masks on. And so certainly we want to give them every opportunity to help us and make certain that they're part of the solution in creating an environment that's safe for everyone. We haven't had this experience in K2, but we want to set the table for those who maybe are unaware of our requirement. Students must be wearing a mask at all times, and the masks that Katie just spoke of are the kinds that are acceptable. In the event we remind a student that they should be wearing a mask or they may need a mask, we'd be happy to get it for them. But in the event that it becomes a question of compliance, they'll be given a warning. But then if it becomes an ongoing issue, I'm sure you can appreciate, in the best interest of everyone, there'll be a progressive process of helping that student to understand our expectations. And absent of that, we will eventually look to off-ramp those individuals into a online learning environment. I don't suspect this is going to be an issue, but it's important that we just put that out there for everyone now so everyone knows the rules to the game, so to speak. And certainly if you have questions because you think your child might qualify for one of the areas that allows some to get dispensation from the governor's order, please know we'd be happy to talk with you to see if we can't work to get to a yes for you on that. But we really appreciate everything you're going to do on your end in order to just remind our kids the importance of not only the mask wearing, but also the physical distancing. Thanks for allowing me to share that there, Katie.
Yeah, absolutely. A theme will run throughout a few of these slides here where all of these protocols are in place because that's what we need to do in order for our in-person learning to be as stable and continuous as possible. Our school health and our school program is only going to be as strong as all of the health of our students, our staff, and our community. And ultimately, they're all connected. And so we really do need partnership. And we can't wait to bring our students back. We're looking forward to it. But these measures are really critical to everyone's success and for us to be able to keep it in place. If we jump back to thinking about preparing for in-person learning, one thing to note is that all students should pack a reusable water bottle to use with them or to have with them at school. Due to hygiene protocols, our water fountains are closed. And so we have installed water bottle fillers throughout the school. And that's what we'll use to stay hydrated throughout the day. Our teachers will also be communicating a review of list of supplies that need to come to school and what needs to stay at home. So for example, in 3rd and 4th grade, we'll ask that students need to keep their Chromebooks at home. Those should not be packed up and brought. We want to make sure those are keeping those safe from damage. Whereas our 5th graders, when they receive their Chromebook pieces, we will be giving them permission to bring those back and forth. So please keep an eye on that. But things like textbooks, we'll work hard to make sure that students are not hauling textbooks back and forth. So teachers may be directing families and students, hey, bring those textbooks back when you come in person, and then they'll stay at school, and that's not something that needs to be going back and forth every day. Those Journeys books are pretty hefty. We'd want to save everybody that weight of moving those back and forth. Preparing for in-person learning, here's that COVID health acknowledgement. This will be coming home in that letter from our school nurse, Pam Shaw. In order for us to have a strong in-person learning program, we need families to self-monitor for COVID-19 symptoms daily. We also need them to report if their child is diagnosed with COVID-19. And then the other piece that's really critical here is if your child is symptomatic, we need you to keep that child home until they've met the criteria listed here. If this is difficult to read, we'll be sending this home and I'll be sharing these slides as well, so that you may be able to access this. And we need all families who are sending their students in person to agree to this, and also to follow the best practice that include frequent and adequate hand hygiene, covering your cough, covering your sneeze, leaving that face covering on even when we're sneezing, wearing our face coverings, and of course maintaining that social distancing of 6 feet. All right, now we'll start talking about some of what the school day is going to look like. And I've organized it kind of in time order from arrival to dismissal. And so arrival, just like previously, students may be dropped off starting after 7:40. What's different is families, to allow for more distancing, for spreading out of students using different entrances, families may drop off on Lincoln Street. So typically all families are dropping off along, coming into the loop on Hanneman. They may also use Lincoln Street. If your child needs to cross the street, they're on the opposite side of Lincoln Street. They must walk down to the crosswalk at the district office. They may cross there, and then they may walk up to the front door of the intermediate center. Students are welcome to enter doors 13, 14, or 1. Those are the doors along Lincoln or the front doors. And when they enter the building, they'll go right to their breakfast location. If they don't know their breakfast location, don't worry. We'll have staff available and our district office team available to greet students and make sure that they know where they are going upon entering the IC. Bus riders will be following a very similar pattern. They are going to be dropped off in the bus loop. They can enter doors 6, 10, or 11. Those are our recess doors or cafeteria doors, and they're going to go right to their breakfast locations as well. All right, and here is a sample schedule of what a day might look like for a student in cohort A. Again, I know that this might be small to look at. I will share this out in PDF form so you can take a closer look at it, and classroom teachers will also be sending this information home. So at the beginning of the day, we'll do our arrival routine. We'll stay consistent with morning meeting and number corner to kick off the day. The other literacy, math, writing might be at different parts of the day, but every class will have a good block of time for literacy, math, and writing. We have 2 specials, one each day when students are in person. PE will be down in the cafeteria or the gym. And we have guidance for all students. Mr. Buddy will be leading a guidance lesson in all classes. Recess and lunch, those routines should look pretty similar. Our same 2 25-minute recesses a day and a 25-minute lunch period. And then we'll wrap things up with dismissal. We'll start with our 5th graders at 3:23. I've got a slide that lays that out. And then we'll do a rolling dismissal from there. For our virtual days, Wednesdays will look very similar. We'll probably feel almost no different than what the last semester has felt like, with the exception of starting at 8:20 instead of 8:05, or 8:15, I'm sorry. Morning meeting will start at 8:20 instead of 8:15. That is, again, to align with the in-person learning schedule. Then on those virtual days, Thursday, Friday, or Monday, Tuesday, students will still tune in for a morning meeting, do number corner with their teacher from the classroom, and then they will have independent time for subjects like science, social studies, dream box, independent reading. There may be additional literacy practice, additional math practice, independent work, and then we will have our live art and music lessons on virtual days as well. And I'll lay out that schedule for families. Cohort B looks very similar, just the opposite, where they'll start their week virtually and then they'll transition to on-site learning on Thursday and Friday. They will have the exact same experience. Teachers will be doing the exact same things. It'll just be on different days of the week. To go into a little bit more depth about related arts, PE will be in person. Classes will be transitioning down to the cafeteria or the gym. Guidance, Mr. Buddy will be staying in his classroom and presenting a lesson much like this, where students will have him coming through to them on their AVER board. And that way we can still have guidance lessons for all of our students, but then not have exposure across all of our classrooms, both for our students' sake and for Mr. Buddy's sake. Art and music will be live streamed on virtual days. Due to the content area, we can't sing, we can't sing inside, we can't play recorders, we need to avoid shared instruments. And so it was really clear to us that music needed to be virtual for the time being. And likewise, art, trying to complete art without going down to the art room would be pretty difficult. And so continuing with our virtual lessons was the best path forward there. Library will continue to be recorded lessons as well, but we will make sure all students have an opportunity for an in-person checkout, because we know how important it is to be getting high interest reading materials into all of our students' hands. And just like for our virtual learners, Miss Christy Sprague is going to be subbing for Miss Lou, and she will be teaching art, so there will be a new face for students in their art lessons. For art and music, we ask that students choose one, either attend the live lesson or watch the recorded lesson. If it were up to us, we'd have all of our students attending live. Please know the content will be the same, and then they'll go back and complete that assignment on their learning platform. Likewise, for library, that's going to stay just that recorded lesson. Lunch and recess. Some of our students might say the most important part of the day. We will, in order to keep our model stable and strong, we'll be staying in cohorts as we move through lunch and recess. Breakfast and lunch are still offered. In fact, I got an email from Michelle Dank, our school nutrition coordinator today, asking how can we get the word out? Meals are free right now. She would love for all students to be participating. And so she said, if there's someone new who wants to participate, there's not a sign up, but if they could email Diane Beckwith so that she can count on numbers and know how many meals to prepare. We'd love to provide as many meals as possible. She even said some students may still pack a lunch. They'll see what's in the school meal that looks good for them, and they'll have the best of both worlds. And so please know that if that sounds enticing to you or your student, our school nutrition program would love your participation. 2 recesses per day. That will be the same as what students are used to. They'll be outside so students can take mask breaks. We do ask that students still distance because we'll be with people outside of our household. And then we have purchased equipment so that each class will have their own bag of materials that the homeroom students can use, and then we'll be sure those are cleaned between cohorts. All right, I think I've got just a couple. We're at close to the end of the day here, dismissal. So here lays out our pattern. We're going to do a rolling dismissal for students. Notice that we'll go 5th grade, then 3rd grade, then 4th, and then we'll dismiss our bus riders starting at 3:26. Again, just like drop off, car riders may use the Lincoln Street exits or front loop. Again, if they're crossing the street, they must go down to that crosswalk to get crossed by the crossing guard. And for 3rd grade students who may need a little bit more time, that would be a great option to use the loop, the front loop by the front door until they are in a good routine. and then they could use whatever door is closest to their arrival locations. We saw a little bit on what the virtual days looks like. This lays it out for you again. Note our live art and music classes are organized by grade level. Third grade lessons will be at 9:15, fourth grade lessons at 9:50, and fifth grade lessons at 10:25. If you have students over in the K2 schools, the ELC or the PC, those are the same times. We coordinated our schedules that way. And as we mentioned, Wednesdays are that short day, morning meeting, number corner, lesson launch, and then independent work. Attendance for our students coming in person. Of course, in-person attendance is required and resumes like we're used to. Call into our main office to report an absent, please. We'll be making safe calls for any students who is absent and we haven't received a call from the family. This is true on virtual days as well. Homeroom teachers will be taking attendance in their morning meeting and number corner. So if a student needs to be absent, we also need to know about that as well. And this is just a review of our mitigation efforts. Face coverings are required. We'll be distancing. We'll be staying in separate cohorts. We'll be practicing frequent hand washing, eliminating shared materials. We'll be disinfecting frequently, and we'll be relying on families to keep their child home when they have symptoms. And lastly, here's my plug that our school health is only as strong as our community's health. And so while we'll be working hard to maintain all these mitigation efforts, it's critical that we maintain these throughout our community if we want to maintain in-person learning. And so whatever's going on to the community comes into our schools. And so we appreciate the best that if you can maintain these practices throughout our Mount Horeb communities so that we can keep our schools healthy. All right. Woo! I think I ran through everything that I was hoping to get through. And so we can jump back to questions.
Yeah, great job, Katie. Thank you. A lot of moving pieces, and maybe grab a glass of water, bless your heart. You've been going at it here for a few minutes. That's because so much good stuff is happening. You know, I see one question in the chat that has to do with bus scheduling. And about 5 o'clock here tonight, you may have received an email related to buses and scheduling. Our attempt is to still have the same bus routing system we had last year when we ended the school year. We're kind of going back to that. And those of you who needed bus transportation, we've tried to slot you in. So if you didn't get that email, could I trouble you to drop me a line or drop our transportation coordinator, Brian Toth, a line, and we'd be happy to help you and your family out. Katie, oh, see, you're so good. You're a step ahead of me as usual. You've got the sample schedule B up there. Ms. Nemo, did you want to ask any questions at all about that?
Nope, I'm good, thank you. I just wanted to take a picture.
You betcha. Oh, screenshots are the best, aren't they? And Ms. Schilling wanted to know, for arrivals, do walkers follow the same procedures as car riders and the same doors? And I think the answer to that's yes, isn't it?
Yes, they are welcome to come into any of the doors along Lincoln or in the front door. What we'll be telling students when they're in person with us, once they understand where their arrival location is, where their breakfast will be, and then their transition to their classroom, we'll be coaching them. Use the entrance that's most convenient to where you need to go. And so then you're closest to where your breakfast location is. But we really wanted to use more doors so we could support students distancing and being able to spread out all of our coming and going.
The other question was with regard to getting access to the slides. I think I heard you say maybe the slide deck will be available. Is it tomorrow you're thinking about pushing things out?
Yep, so I will probably send out our health acknowledgement letter first. I don't want that getting lost in the shuffle. And then I'm aiming to get my next newsletter organized for Wednesday. And I would include that in that newsletter.
Maybe an opportunity to open the floor up to any questions people might have. We're happy to hear you. If you wanted to just unmute yourself, we'd love to hear your thoughts, or if you feel more comfortable just putting something in the chat, we'd be happy to field those questions that way too.
I had a question about lunch. Are they going to be eating in the cafeteria or in their own classrooms?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we are not going to be using the cafeteria for lunch because we really wanted to emphasize keeping our groups separated and keeping those from mixing. And so we've got the best of both worlds where they're not going to be in the cafeteria, but they're not going to be in the classroom. And so that makes our school nurse happy for thinking about kiddos with allergens. We're going to use some of our empty classrooms. We've emptied out the computer labs, and we've got desks spread apart so that students can still maintain their distancing, and they'll have their own lunch location with just their group, and then they'll transition back to the classroom when they're done with lunch.
Yeah, I've been on the phone with a number of families over the course of the past several days, and many of them have advocated for us to return to school 5 days a week. Steve, how come we're not doing this? And it's my understanding that there aren't many, in fact, any schools in Dane County that are public schools that are currently operating at 5 days a week. And what's the reason for that? It has to do with our ability to physically distance students 6 feet apart from one another. The square footage piece is what often gets into the way of that. I think our average will be somewhere between 10 and 12 students per class, per cohort. So we still think that we can have some favorable teacher-pupil rate. That we're attempting to honor from Public Health Madison-Dane County in addition to the governor's order. And certainly if you have specific questions about how we're following our protocols or what are those protocols, I direct you to our district's main web page. And in fact, if you were to just scroll down just a little ways in the left side, actually in the middle of the website, I should say, there's 3 different boxes. One of them just has a listing of all the various kinds of protocols that we've established that are in concert with what Public Health Madison-Dane County has asked of us. And then in the middle box, you'll find some information with regard to virtual learning experiences that we've got for students. And for those of us who are still trying to wrap our, oh, thank you, Katie, that's wonderful of you. You'll see just some tutorials that might be helpful to families and to some students that were created by our Director of Instruction and her team. Her name is Sarah Straka and always does a wonderful job for our families. And then lastly, the student wellness side of the house is still very important to all of us, whether it be in a hybrid or in a virtual model. There's some great resources there for families. We don't expect you to know all the answers. There's not a quiz in order for you to get out of this meeting here tonight. We know it takes sometimes hearing this more than one time. And please know it's never, ever a bother to give us a call or shoot us an email. Our job is to help support you and make you feel comfortable and your child feel comfortable. So never feel like that's a bother in any way at all. I see there's a question here. Will there be an opportunity to revisit our choice virtual in-person for 4th quarter? Also, do you anticipate 4th quarter to be the same schedule? I think our schedule will be the same. I think that our opportunity to on-ramp or off-ramp would come on or around the 4th quarter. It will really depend on a host of factors. Again, namely Public Health Madison-Dane County and their position with regard to physical distancing. If we have a large number of families that want to on-ramp into a hybrid model and we're not able to meet that square footage requirement, it might mean that we're not able to honor everyone's request. But at the end of the day, we'll go down trying. We'll make every effort we can in order to get our families what they need. So some really great questions. How about one last call for questions of the Honorable Katie Hauge, Principal? Well, you'll see the slide that just came through on the screen here. If you didn't get a chance, or you wanted to kind of go back and listen to something that was shared tonight, or you have a neighbor or a friend who didn't get a chance to see this, we'll put this video up on our YouTube channel and push it out to families tomorrow on our social media accounts. This much is true, team, and that is that we're finding our way through this together. And as there are questions now, no doubt, even a week or two into this process, there'll be some questions that we had not even thought of. But one of the things I take great heart in is knowing that everybody understands that we're in this together. We're finding our way through it together. And know that, as I said earlier, no question is too silly or too small. We're always very happy to speak with you. I know how you all care so much for your children. Here you are on a call after a long day of work. And we just really, truly appreciate your partnership. We couldn't do this without you. You make me proud to be a Viking. I hope you are too. Please have a great night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Say, Katie, I don't think I can remove people because it's not my meeting. And in order for me to stop the recording, I might need your help, friend. Get rid of Straka there. Oh, there she is. Okay. Let me see if I can't stop the recording.
I can get out if you want me to. Nice job.